What's up, everyone? Peter Overzet here on the Mayo Media Network, doing what we always do here on Monday afternoons, which is record our first look at the following week's DFS salaries on DraftKings. We have the Week 15 slate on tap, and we have finally emerged from the bye weeks. We have no teams on bye, but as it pertains to the main slate, we are missing some interesting teams. We have a Thursday night game, Chiefs and Chargers, so we don't get those guys. And then we actually have two Saturday night games this week, which starts up. So we have Raiders, Browns, Patriots, Colts not on the main slate. We have Saints, Bucks on Sunday Night Football. And then we have Vikings, Bears on Monday Night Football. And I'm here going through the projected over-unders for this main slate, and it's looking pretty grim. I don't see an over-under projected for more than 47.5 points. The best games as of right now look like Seattle versus the Rams, and then the Cardinals versus the Lions. And of course, the Cardinals are carrying that total on their back. So this is going to be an interesting slate. We'll walk through it as we always do. Usual caveats here. I'm normally struggling to find value on a Monday afternoon, but then we have things like Keenan Allen being ruled out last week and opening up, your Josh Palmers and Jalen Guytons of the world. So as usual, lots of stuff changed, but this is the foundation to your research here. We are running out of good main slates. We have week 15, week 16, 17. Week 18 is always a bit of a free-for-all with teams often resting players, and then we're going to get a few good playoff slates, but definitely take advantage here, soak it all in, because in just a short amount of time, we will no longer have football main slates to dive into. So let's savor it while we have it. Let's start at the quarterback position. Right at the top, Josh Allen coming off of that 40-point game on DraftKings, and yet he comes out of this game a little banged up. I believe the current take is that he might have a mild case of turf toe. He was in a walking boot when he left the game, so clearly going to have to monitor that. At home versus Carolina would be a pretty good spot for Josh Allen, obviously. And I think with that uncertainty, Kyler Murray is going to be incredibly popular. Tonight, we have him playing the Rams, so there's always a chance that public sentiment can change, whether that's on injury, performance. But I feel pretty confident that heading into this game against Detroit, who has just been a complete patsy on defense, that Kyler Murray is going to project very well at 7,900. We have some other injuries to monitor. Aaron Rodgers continues to deal with this fractured toe, but he is hoping to avoid minor surgery with it. Lamar Jackson left the game early yesterday with an ankle injury. It says here the Ravens plan to see how Jackson feels Monday before any determinations are made. If Lamar Jackson were to miss, Huntley would very much be in play at home versus Green Bay at 5,400. He flashed some nice rushing upside yesterday in relief of Lamar Jackson, rushing here for 45 yards, and he actually looked pretty dialed in as a passer. Mark Andrews and Rashad Bateman had really nice days, so Tyler Huntley would become very interesting. I think also up here on the top end for me, I am willing to go back to Jalen Hurts. I know it's been a bit of a roller coaster. He goes from a 30-point game to a 10-point game, but his upside there at 6,600 at home versus Washington, who kind of looks like a disaster right now. So I could definitely see Jalen Hurts coming off of the bye, having a big game here. I mentioned that the Seattle Rams game looks like one of the better games on the main slate. So I think you can make cases for both Matt Stafford and Russell Wilson. The Seahawks showing some signs of life now. Lockett obviously unlocked for a big game yesterday. Gerald Everett was serviceable. So maybe Russ Wilson is starting to warm up just a little bit. And you have to figure on the road in Los Angeles, they won't be able to run quite as much. Although I can hear Pete Carroll right now saying, hold my beer, Peter. But if they do get forced into a negative game script, I think Russ Wilson could be interesting. Don't know how I feel about Burrow on the road at Denver. That feels like a tough spot. The Denver defense is playing really well right now, and at home on the road for Burrow seems rough. But I will say on the flip side, Teddy Bridgewater has so many weapons at his disposal right now, and they didn't really need to pass a ton yesterday against the Lions because the run game was just absolutely crushing. But I'll be very interested in Bridgewater at 5,500 here. I think we got to mention Tua as well, coming off of the bye here. The Jets are awful, And Tua has been really solid this year. So, he's flashed kind of a high floor. Haven't quite seen the ceiling, but if any team could unlock a ceiling, it's certainly the Jets. And at 5,700, he doesn't have to score that many points to pay off. As far as other cheap guys, I guess we can talk about Cam. Down here at 5,400, he had a really weird game yesterday where he was being yanked in and out of the lineup. And you had Matt Rule saying today that the plan is for both him and PJ Walker to see time under center. So this is one of those tough spots where if you knew you were getting a full game out of Cam, he's going to project really well because he's rushing and he's honestly throwing the ball fine. He got 15 points yesterday and was barely playing the full set of snaps. So we'll see about the Cam stuff. I never really understand the hybrid quarterback strat, but we'll have to stay tuned on that. I think Huntley is the guy, though, that's going to be popular if Lamar misses. Let's head over to running back, which is real gross on the top end here. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott looks like total dust. Najee Harris has really kind of slowed down a bit. He did have the 25 points. A lot of it came at the end of the game, but his efficiency just hasn't been there, and he's just not breaking off any big plays. And you're going to have to pay $7,800 for him against the Titans. Joe Mixon, who had an incredible stretch there, has now really been struggling. He had 3 straight games over 27 points, now a 10-point game, an 8-point game. Now he's on the road at Denver. I think it's safe to worry about him, especially with Pirine working in a decent amount on pass downs. How about Cordero Patterson, man? All this guy does is find a way to score every week, or score fantasy points, I should say. Even when he's not hitting a ceiling, he's not burning you. So yeah, Cordero Patterson at a very nice $6,900 price tag against San Francisco seems interesting. Aaron Jones coming off a nice 2-touchdown game on Sunday Night Football. Not getting a ton of work, though. He was just very efficient with those 2 touchdowns, only 5 carries and 3 targets. It does seem like A.J. Dillon is sort of taking over there. So he's probably going to be the classic Aaron Jones thing, which is a good tournament play, but probably not going to project as well. Barkley looked pretty good yesterday, and now they're at home against Dallas. 16 rushing attempts, 3 targets, did get that rushing or receiving TD. So Saquon's workload has been pretty consistent. I think we kind of know what we're getting out of him. And he still has some explosiveness. I think Pat Kerrane in his NBC Sports Edge article was talking about his breakaway run rate and that it was still pretty high up there in the league. So anytime these running backs still have that explosiveness, I think that's interesting. DeAndre Swift, if he comes back, the Lions were using a 3-way committee at running back this week with Craig Reynolds, Godwin, Igwebuike, and Jamar Jefferson. So if DeAndre Swift were to come back, I think he'd be interesting at home here against the Cardinals. Same deal with Elijah Mitchell. Jeff Wilson didn't necessarily do anything yesterday to, cement, his handle on the job. I do think Eli Mitchell would come right back in and get most of that work. We can mention the Broncos backs, but man, it's easy for both Broncos backs to pay off their salary when they're down in those low 5Ks. But now that they're up here in the 6K range, 5,900 for Melvin Gordon, 6,100 for Javonte Williams, it's starting to get a little harder for both of those guys to project well in a true 50-50 split. So Javonte's getting a little bit more of the attractive, green zone pass work, and Melvin Gordon is getting a slight edge in carries as of right now. But yeah, this is a tough spot for the committee backs when they get this pricey. Darrell Henderson is actually who jumped out to me at running back when I was looking at this. He's obviously not playing tonight with COVID, but I still maintain, similar to the Elijah Mitchell stuff with the 49ers, that they, greatly prefer Henderson as their lead back. And so even though Sony Michel's been running well, I'm pretty confident that when Henderson returns, he will be the bell cow. So getting him at home for Seattle here, who's been pretty bad against the run at 5,900, that seems like a really nice spot. And then as far as the cheap stuff down here, I think A.J. Dillon in a GPP makes sense to me. Rashad Penny looked really good yesterday, but that, of course, was against the Texans, and now they're on the road at the Rams. So not as good of a spot for Rashad Penny, but man, did he take advantage of his opportunities yesterday. 16 attempts, 137 yards, 2 TDs. He's fairly interesting. And then I guess I can also mention Donta Foreman down here. He was more attractive in that matchup against the Jags because it is a little bit of a three-way timeshare with Hilliard and McNichols now back. So Donta Foreman definitely looked the best of those guys. But 13 attempts versus, the Steelers is going to be a bit tougher of a sell. Let's head over to the tight end position where George Kittle is just absolutely destroying these 2 past weeks. Absolutely massive performances, 42.6 DraftKings points, 37.1 DraftKings points. He is going to be your undisputed top tight end play on the week. We don't even have to have Travis Kelce debates because he is not on this main slate. And I think Mark Andrews, is not quite obviously in Kittle territory, but he really flashed with Huntley. 11 targets, 11 receptions, found the end zone there. We've always known he's capable of this, but the Ravens offense has just been a little bit of a roller coaster this year. So Mark Andrews, I'm interested in. Kyle Pitts is just a tough sell, even here at 5,500. This is just such a low ceiling offense in general that it's hard to get excited about paying for tight ends in this range. This whole 5K range feels tough to me. Goddard, Ertz, Pitts. I'd rather get up to Andrews or Kittle or go cheaper here. Maybe Hawkinson comes back and projects well. Dawson Knox scored a touchdown. 9 targets for Dawson Knox is really nice. He's a really big part of their offense. Emmanuel Sanders is getting phased out a bit. Did I just skip over wide receiver? I completely skipped over wide receiver. I'm sorry, guys. We'll circle back to that. I am completely off my game today. I started my earlier GPP review show on mute. I'm just down bad. I'm down bad. The DraftKings account is bleeding and I can't even do this show in its proper sequential order. Let's talk about a couple of the other tight ends and then we could get back to the wide receivers here. Noah Fant looked pretty good for Denver on Sunday. I'm interested in him at 4,400. Gerald Everett, his price tag doesn't come up a bunch, and he's been getting a decent amount of work. Only the 2 targets yesterday, but did find the end zone and had 6 targets, 9 targets the 2 weeks previously. Let's see. Anything else down here? James O'Shaughnessy has been pretty consistent. 6 targets, 5 targets. Now he gets the Texans. That's a pretty nice matchup for James O'Shaughnessy. So always some fun stuff down here when we're dumpster diving. Brevin Jordan had a touchdown for the Texans. Brock Wright, if for some reason Hawkinson wasn't good to go, although I think he will be, he did have 5 targets with Hawkinson out. Let's circle back to wide receiver. How did I forget the funnest position? I don't know how I did that. Wide receiver is actually pretty loaded at the top end here. Cooper Kupp, of course, at 9,000 against the Seahawks at home. Unless something crazy happens tonight, he's going to project extremely well. Devontae Adams coming off of a monster Sunday Night Football performance, 13 targets, 2 touchdowns. Devontae Adams is who we thought he was. Deebo Samuel at 8,200 is interesting to me. He, wasn't expected to play last week during the early part of the week. And then once he was active, he projected really well, but he did play, a limited amount of snaps relative to his full workload. So maybe this throws people off the scent a bit if we do project him back for a full set of routes in this game against Atlanta. I'm pretty enticed by him. Stephon Diggs, he's still, despite not having the kind of ceiling games that we've really hoped for this year outside of that game against the Jets, I saw a stat that he's still tied for 3rd in the league with red zone targets along with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So Stephon Diggs still very much in the alpha wide receiver mix. Also, interested in CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase here, 7,400, 7,100. Jamar Chase finally back at it, 25 points after a little rough stretch there. He's always an intriguing play that people don't seem to want to click. DeAndre Hopkins at 6,900 versus Detroit will probably be in play. DK Metcalf now down in this range with some of the more secondary wide receivers, Ayuk, Higgins, Cooper, Devonta Smith. This isn't necessarily the range we've seen him in. I'm happy to go back to DK Metcalf. I know Lockett has been the one flashing the big games lately, but I really don't think that much has changed there. I know there's theories going that ever since the DK Metcalf OnlyFans foursome story surfaced that Russell Wilson is favoring a God-fearing man in Tyler Lockett. While very fun, I don't necessarily buy that that's what's happening. And I'm interested in a $6,200 DK Metcalf if no one's going to play him. That looks pretty palatable to me. Brandon Cooks managed to get 100 yards in that game. Didn't seem like it, but he did 11 targets for 101. So he's firmly in bring back territory. Although I say bring back, and I don't know who is necessarily stacking up the Jags. Maybe mini correlation territory. I will plant my flag right now on a Brandon Cooks, James O'Shaughnessy mini. Elijah Moore, devastating. He's on IR. Let's see. What do we got down here? Julio Jones. I was hoping for more from him in his return. His price stays the same. He did have 6 targets, and with AJ Brown still not back, I think he's still in the conversation. Love this spot for Jerry Jeudy. Again, the Broncos didn't really need to throw that much against the Lions. I think they could need to throw a little bit more against the Bengals, and that could be fun. Amon-Ra St. Brown is just racking up targets, back-to-back games with 12 targets. He could be a nice bring back there for your Arizona Cardinals stacks. Let's see if we have anything else interesting down here in the low range. DraftKings all season has been very sharp with their pricing, making it hard for us to find deals. I might kick the tires on Rondale Moore at 4,400 in that game against the Lions. Emmanuel Sanders all the way down to 4,000. You know, Dawson Knox is a factor. Gabriel Davis coming on, only 1 target. He did leave with a knee injury, so we'll have to keep tabs on that. But I'm always willing to make cheap bets on the Bills pass catchers. Gabe Davis as well, cheap bet on the Bills pass catcher. His role has been growing. You can see here he was in the 3 to 4 target territory, jumped up to 8 targets yesterday. So if something is up with Emmanuel Sanders, Gabriel Davis will be very popular. And I suppose I can mention Laquan Treadwell down here as well. Treadwell had a pretty nice game, 6 for 68. Again, I know no one's getting super excited about it, but these target and yardage totals at 3,300, as they say in the biz, you could do worse. We already hit on tight end. I apologize once again for going out of order. Maybe they'll hook us up with some timestamps. The old QB, running back, tight end, wide receiver, defense show order. Classic. Defense. This is my first time taking a peek at defense, seeing if we can find anything interesting down here. Ravens at home versus Rodgers is kind of intriguing to me at 2,500. Can I find anything? Jacksonville at home versus Davis Mills for 2,800 looks good. I guess either defense in that game could be fine. And then up on the high end, of course, the Cardinals versus Detroit have the highest tag. Broncos at home versus the Bengals for 2,900. That looks pretty good to me. Bills versus the Carolina quarterback committee is good. 49ers versus Atlanta is good. Lots of good defensive options here in this 2,800 to 3,300 range. That is it for my first look, guys. I appreciate you checking out the show. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys are looking to improve your DFS process, I highly recommend checking out Run the Sims. They now have weekly and monthly packages if you want to test drive it for the end of the season. We run 10,000 simulations for every main slate, every showdown slate, and then show you which players are showing the most optimal leverage relative to projected ownership. It is a great way to find overlooked plays that the math is favoring far more than the field. I highly recommend it. You can get 10% off with promo code Pete. Feel free to ask me or Mayo about Run the Sims. We will give you the spiel. Highly recommend it. Good luck in week 15. Hope you guys all find yourselves at the top of the leaderboards. We'll be back next week.